The Summer Games Minute, brought to you by MassMutual. It is one of the most coveted trophies in the world, but are gold medals really gold? Well, mostly, they're not. The gold medals given out these days are nearly entirely silver and are plated with pure gold to give them that iconic sheen. Silver medals are, of course, made with silver, and bronze medals are a combination of copper and other metals like tin or zinc. And while winning an Olympic medal is priceless, the value of the materials in the medal are not. In recent games, some of the materials used to make the medals have come from recycled cell phones. MassMutual celebrates women's sports history and understands the nuances in how women want and need to manage their finances. With quality product solutions and guidance, a MassMutual financial professional can help you plan for both short-term and long-term money goals. Learn more and get started at massmutual.com.
As you've probably heard by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code The Athletic, and you'll get a 1-year subscription to The Athletic, plus up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code The Athletic. Make your first deposit of at least $10. Place your first bet on any game and claim your voucher for a 1-year subscription to The Athletic. See BetMGM.com for terms. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., Mississippi, New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona. 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts. 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help in Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code The Athletic, and you'll get a 1-year subscription to The Athletic, plus up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager.
The Athletic.
Hello. Right. Before all the sport chat is distilled into a massive Euro 24 daily podcast, highlights and analysis, we thought we'd take inspiration from one of our sister podcasts, the MotoGP, and have some fun speculating about the various bits of gossip and tittle-tattle from the Formula E paddock. So who better to join me, Andrew Vanderberg, to discuss what promises to be a very silly season is our man behind the paddock bins, Sam Smith. Hi, Sam.
I'm not one to gossip, you know me.
So there's loads to get into, of course, and there'll be an extra long version of Sam's calendar update. So, Johnny, get the jingle ready. But before we unplug the chargers, spin our wheels ostentatiously and roll forward a few feet, the Race Formula E Silly Season podcast special is here. Sam, what do we mean by silly season?
Well, it's my favourite time of year. I think it's many people's favourite time of year. It is that period, it's usually a couple of months max, where contracts are up for renewal or clauses in contracts are essentially, it's the musical chairs of where drivers are going to be the following season. With Formula E being a how would you call it? It's not really a winter-spring championship, but more or less, isn't it? It finishes in the height of summer. This is the time. Yeah. So traditionally it kicks off in Monaco. It was very slow this year, but let me tell you, as we record this on the 6th of June, it is ablaze at the moment. Hence why we've scrambled this emergency podcast. So, very much looking forward to it. It's essentially who goes where next season.
It's sillier than a Roger Hargreaves character with a big top hat on.
You couldn't have put it better, VDB.
Yes.
Absolutely concur with that.
Okay, so we've established what the silly season is. So who are the main players, the protagonists that are making the noises and the merry-go-round spin around?
Yeah, I mean, definitively, it's always hard to know who exactly is leading the market, if you will. Most years are like that because you're never privy to what's actually in the contract, are you? You don't know what the clauses are, when the deadlines are, the duration of the contracts, and so forth. But
and of all the things that are spun and leaked and misinformation go around, details of contracts is my favourite one. Everyone seems to know what the various clauses are in everyone's contracts, and it's like, no,
you don't.
You reckon?
You don't really know. You never really know. You can make assumptions. You can get intelligence. You can lean on the driver managers, but ultimately the driver managers never compromise their clients, and occasionally they will feed you in things, usually red herrings, and other people, not just the managers, but other personalities, let's say, within the paddock. There's a lot of vested interests. There's a lot of money swilling around. And there's a lot of pressure. There's pressure for the drivers. There's pressure for the teams. The teams need to get drivers that they know they're going to get a return on investment on. And in Formula E, it's super interesting that generally there is a steady pool, a core pool of drivers that have been in it, not since the very start, but certainly since, if you look at season 3, you've got probably 8 to 10 drivers who are the core element of the grid. And at the moment, as well as the silly season and the driver market, which we're going to go on to in detail in a minute, the other thing that's interesting for me are two things. One is the potential for clashes with the FIA World Endurance Championship. Again, we'll come on to detail about how that is likely to happen again.
That bit. Yeah,
and how that sort of unsettles the seesaw of drivers who want to do dual programs. And the other one is just this notion that actually a lot of the seasoned pros in Formula E now are knocking on a bit. There's plenty of mid-30s, there's some late 30s, and in the case of Lucas di Grassi, there's going to be a 40-year-old in a couple of months' time. Eventually, these drivers will fall off. They will be replaced. And what we saw in Berlin with a really good level of potential new rookie drivers, I think adding that into the mix, I think there's a kind of transition period that's going to kick off this summer, and it's happening now. As we speak, as this is recorded, and as you listen to this, dear listener, there is a ferment of negotiation and talks going on between teams and drivers.
Well, it's amazing to think how many drivers from season 1 are still active. So you've got di Grassi and Buemi and Burgt, Vandoorne. Frines, did he come in season 1?
Season 2. Robin came in season 2. Costa was there from the start.
So, I mean, that's amazing longevity and consistency that those guys are still in the series.
It is a decade in a series. Okay, it happens quite regularly in Formula One now, but most of the championships, generally professional drivers will do, I think an average of 4 or 5 seasons. Generally, IndyCar is a bit of an exception too, but in championships like DTM, you have your stalwarts, of course you do, but the cycle is quite slow in Formula E. Even the guys that are now just getting into their 30s, you have a big discrepancy on how long they've been in the championship. A good example being Oliver Rowland, who came in season 5, which is now 5 years ago. Jake Hughes, who's the same age, I think, just slightly a bit younger than Oliver Rowland, is, he's only in his 2nd season. So you've got these kind of fascinating dynamics. We're going to talk about particularly Hughes a bit later, and how their careers are mapped out by their respective representatives and where they fit into the general, where they go into the corporate makeup of teams as well. That's important. The finance is important. The sporting excellence is crucial. But there's more to it than that as well. There's representing manufacturers and even professional customer teams. It's a big job. Quite apart from the fact that you've got a lot of commitments in the sim and on the track, there's quite a lot you have to do off the track as well. So it's I hesitate to say a full-time job, because obviously for some it isn't. They split it between other things. I mean, even Jake Dennis, who is his sole racing discipline is Formula E. He's doing a little bit for BMW. He's doing a lot for Red Bull. Sebastien Buemi somehow is still doing Formula E for WEC and doing Red Bull simulator stuff. I've got no idea. And he's got 3 kids. I mean, the man's, he must have a doppelganger or something, but incredible work ethic there. But everyone's different as well, so you've got different makeups of different personalities, and one size doesn't fit all on the grid.
So one team we won't be talking about will be Jaguar, because they have no skin in this silly season game.
They don't, which is refreshing for them after last season, when it the focus was on them, wasn't it, with the departure of Sam Bird and Nick Cassidy being signed up after his excellent season, a few seasons with Envision. But they're set. In my mind, there are probably only 2 teams, that's 4 cars of the 22 that are completely locked and loaded, which are Jaguar with Mitch Evans and Nick Cassidy, and Mahindra, I believe, with Ado Mortara and Nick De Vries. I mean, there's a small question on De Vries in the sense that, if Fred Bertrand wants to get extremely militant, then, he could dig his heels in over the potential clash, which we think is going to happen again next season, and De Vries' commitment and their priority with Toyota, which we saw when he raced in Spa rather than Berlin. But actually, I think they can get over that, and De Vries will be in that seat again next season. And just those 2, Jaguar and Mahindra, I believe, are the ones that will stay the same.
Okay, so who do we think are the main shaker? Obviously, we've been talking about it, started the whole discourse around it, is the second Porsche seat next to Pascal Wehrlein. Antonio Felix da Costa, the man in it at the moment, arguably one of the form drivers, if not the form driver in the series at the moment. Is he staying, or is he going? And if he's going, where's he going to go to?
Is he staying? Is he going? We should have a Joe Strummer. We should have a Clash jingle.
We should have a little bit of cash here, shouldn't we? Yeah.
So this is fascinating. It's the story of the season, isn't it? The fact that Da Costa was an element of been ostracised in some quarters of Porsche, particularly the management side. I think in periods earlier this year, the test that Nico Muller did for the team, which we discovered just after, or actually during the Tokyo E-Prix. The fallout from that was considerable, but then Antonio went on this incredible run of essentially winning 3 races, although he only kept 2 of them. And he is the form man at the moment. We think, we don't know, of course, but we believe he has a contract for next year with Porsche. But, there's a lot of damage has been done there to the relationship, and some of that has to be fixed. What ultimately, I think a lot of people came away from Berlin in particular after he won that second race, and the word was that he was very much going to stay and it would be an unchanged lineup there. I believe that that's no guarantee. I think it could go either way. I think it's still at that position, whether Da Costa stays at Porsche or not. I think. How
much of this is WEC related? Because obviously Porsche, one of the big guns in the WEC, but he's not a part of that lineup and not likely to be, I'm guessing. Is this a feature of that?
Yeah, so the genesis of the whole issue really predates the Muller test and the way that things went in the early part of the season. Last September, he was told by Porsche management that he had to focus on Formula E, that he wouldn't be able to race in the WEC, which, having raced in it for probably 6-7 seasons at least, first with BMW and then with Jota, that hurt Da Costa. I know it did. I had a conversation with him at the end of 2023, and it really hurt him. He eventually came to accept it, but it still was a wound that refused to heal, really. He wants to race in the WEC. He knows it's a golden period. He knows he's one of the top performers in sports cars and endurance racing. He won Le Mans. He won the LMP2 championship in WEC. And he wants more silverware. He wants more success at a golden time of sports car racing. And he's not allowed to do that. He's shackled. He's shackled by Porsche, not being able to do that. And I think in an ideal world, he would want to do a dual program again. He's not going to be able to do that at Porsche. So in a way, does this, and I'm sort of hypothesizing here, does this give Da Costa actually more power now weirdly, from the position he was in after Saudi when he was on his knees, and the fact that he had to go through the indignity of somebody else from another team testing his car, or their car, the development car. When you think about it, Da Costa actually is in a pretty good position because he has a contract with Porsche. Porsche clearly do now want him more than they did in February, you would assume.
Would it be a weird time to let him go now?
It would. It would be strange because he gets on really well with Pascal Wehrlein. He gets on well with, as far as I can see, 99% of the team, and there are just a few people within it at a sort of highish level that the difference in whatever philosophy, culture, whatever, just isn't the same. So my thoughts on it are, well, if he gets an offer from a solid offer from a WEC manufacturer, which you'd assume that he's on the radar for sure, then he could take that and then feasibly get a seat elsewhere on the Formula E grid. Now, where that is, I think it could literally be anywhere. He's an ex-champion. If you're an Envision,
well, as we said, there's only. I mean, he wouldn't want to go to Mahindra, and Jaguar's all tied up. So there's a leading seat at just about every other front running team.
I mean, what I'd throw into the pot here is he left DS in a very good manner. They liked him there, and he brought success there. And let's call it Stellantis, because there are two teams here, aren't there? There's DS and there's Maserati.
Yes.
Now, he left on very good terms.
And they have a WEC program. Well, at the moment.
They do. They do indeed. They do indeed. I think it's just, I think even though people would assimilate Peugeot and the DS and Maserati under the cluster of Stellantis, I would be a little bit reticent for that. Da Costa has very strong ties and is extremely friendly with Jota. At the time of recording this, I don't think the news of what Jota are doing next year has been made public, so we better not go there just on that one.
We better not give it away, but it's very exciting.
Yeah, so I think that if Da Costa is potentially offered a seat in the WEC at let's say what Jota will be doing next season, it could put him in a good position with other teams on the Formula E grid. But this is where it gets a bit complicated. So what you have to factor in is the absolute clarity that teams have in terms of allowing drivers to do double programs now. And
so how convinced are we that there will be another calendar clash? Are we just assuming there will be because of the likelihood dictates it will, or is there guaranteed to be one?
Yeah, so when this goes out, the calendars will be known. So let's talk about what we know. We believe that there is a clash in July with the Berlin E-Prix and the Interlagos WEC round as it stands. Now,
yeah, they're not even just round the corner like this year. You're not getting from one to the other.
Well, I won't be manhandling my way onto a private jet for that one unless you're paying for it. So
that's not happening, mate.
I think that actually that is likely to happen as it stands, but you've got to caveat it with the fact that it's the Formula E provisional calendar and it will change.
Also, that's Sao Paulo WEC race in July. That's going to be hot.
Is it?
6 hours in that heat.
Southern Hemisphere though, isn't it? It'll be.
But it's the tropics, isn't it? So it doesn't really change.
Who knows? I'll take my
somebody
spare.
who knows better than us.
I'll take my spare vest. I'll take my spare vests. Getting back to the point, I think that is a real. Is a real factor in this driver market and silly season, is the fact that our teams now, let's say Envision, Andretti, we know had complete priority for Norman Nato this year. Envision didn't, and they got hurt by it because they lost Buemi and Freins for those two races in Berlin. I would imagine, although I've not asked Sylvain Philippe yet, I would imagine that Sylvain Philippe has just said, no more. You commit to our team. We have priority on you, and if you've got your clash with priorities with the WEC, so be it. Hence, we'll come on to Envision. There could be some big changes there. But going back to Da Costa, just on a final point, I think he's got some wiggle room and some freedoms, because I don't think he will be at want for offers from other teams. It just depends on whether those teams are receptive to a dual program, and I don't think there are many now, or there are going to be many for next season.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see. I think he is absolutely central to it. I think all the time that he's potentially on the market, it's an option that all team managers would want. Someone else who might be on the market, who I would assume would still be high up on team managers list, despite the fact that he's not had a brilliant couple of seasons. There's another former champion, Stoffel Vandoorne. What are you hearing about him? Where's he going to end up?
I think he's off. I think he's probably his second
off from
season.
FE altogether?
No, I think off from DS Penske. I think there's a lot of transition there, and I think Stoffel will be one of several faces that you used to seeing in black and gold uniform who's not next year. He is highly coveted still. He was a champion just a couple of seasons ago. Very accomplished driver, extremely good technically, very diligent. Yeah, you would discuss terms with Stoffel pretty quickly. So I think he'll be on the move in case where he's going. Look, if Costa does end up leaving Porsche, then I would think as a top line on a list of drivers that you'd want to replace Costa with is another champion, right? It'd be Stoffel Vandoorne. So I think Stoffel would be a phone number that would be on Florian Modlinger and Carlo Viggers and Thomas Laudenbach's phone pretty quickly should Costa choose to leave Porsche. Interesting.
Obviously, he had a great relationship with the Mercedes team that's now NEOM McLaren. As the fact that it's not a full manufacturer team make that unlikely?
I sense that probably won't happen. Just for no other reason than I think, again, Stoffel, a bit like Buemi, he's got 3 programs, hasn't he? He's got Formula E, he's got Peugeot in WEC, and he's doing the Aston Martin reserve stuff. So he's extremely busy. Man. He's getting he's getting nicely remunerated for it, and he'll probably, what is he now, 30? To be 33 next year. I think he'll want to do a couple of more years of maximising his earnings and his trophy cabinet too. I'm not sure. I think he could, with all respect to NEOM McLaren, I think he can probably get something a little more with more possibilities of achieving those things in terms of particularly the silverware. I mentioned Porsche. Envision is another one. Right, they've had a terrible season this season.
Something's got to change there, clearly.
It's almost a write-off. And I think Sylvain Philippe, I remember speaking to Sylvain after he signed Buemi, and he was absolutely delighted that he got a champion, a proven champion. And he puts a lot of kudos on that. And the same is true for Stoffel Vandoorne. I do know that they've had a discussion that Envision and Vandoorne have talked. And I think if Da Costa stays put at Porsche, I would think that Envision and Vandoorne has a pretty good ring to it, and the fact that they're going to be with Jaguar for another 2 seasons is a good solution for Stoffel, isn't it? So that continuing in WEC and still doing his Aston Martin thing, and look, Envision are based they've 30 miles away from Silverstone and not even
Aston,
that.
Yeah, it's basically next door.
Yeah, it's next door, not 30 miles, less than 3 miles, isn't it? So that would be quite a nice thing for Stoffel. Keep his carbon footprint down a bit, wouldn't it? So let's see. Stoffel Vandoorne in green. Yeah, I can see that, and I could see him going to Envision. The question then is, who does he replace at Envision? Buemi and Freins, I think, even by their own admission, it's been a very difficult season. So
are they both out of contract? I mean, obviously, performance-wise, it's hard to make a case for either of them, really. They've hardly shone this year, haven't they?
Well, it's a really good point as well, and there will be performance criteria in their contracts for sure. It's been difficult, and no one really saw that coming. No one saw Envision in 8th place, and with so few results this year, just a podium.
I didn't see them being an also ran. I thought it was going to be hard to defend the championship, but I didn't see the drop off that they've experienced. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a change there. Whether there needs to be 2 changes, I don't know. I would assume, and it's an assumption, that if Vandoorne is available and he does go to the team, that he would probably replace Buemi. And actually, it could be the end of Buemi's decade-long stint in Formula E. But we've said that before. We said that when he was at Nissan, didn't we? A lot of people were rubbishing him at Nissan, and actually, when you dug down into it, he only really had 1 bad season at Nissan. He was still good, although in a poorer car. And
when that was during the really random qualifying thing as well, wasn't
true.
it? It was the one lap that did him.
Yeah, it was, and I think he's still got a lot to offer. He's He'll be 36 this October. So it might be the time, and he might think this himself personally. I doubt he will, because he's a consummate competitor, but there might be part of him thinking, look, I've had a decade at this. I'm a champion. I've won, he's still the most successful driver race win-wise. And, he's represented a couple of manufacturers, and it might be time. He might be thinking, well, maybe I can, if I free up some of my time and I go and race in WEC, continue with Toyota, he could easily be a sort of a 6 time world champion. He's won 4 titles in WEC, and he's won Le Mans. Is it 3 or 4 times? I should know this.
I was just thinking that how many Le Mans he's got. Obviously, you're at the whims of whatever the balanced performance is, as it's announced.
Well, I think a lot of people probably wrongly assume, well, he's got those wins at Le Mans because they had no opposition in those years, which is, if you want to be super harsh, there is some truth in it. But, Sebastien Buemi
he still had the system car to beat, though, didn't he?
Of course, yeah. And, look, Buemi, you can't argue with what Buemi has achieved in racing. And he is absolutely, hugely driven professional driver. And he'll want more success. And potentially, if he concentrates on one racing program and still does his Red Bull stuff, he could end his career at the age of, early 40s as one of the sports car greats, with more Le Mans and more WEC titles than anyone. And I think that will be quite attractive to him. And I think distilling it down to one, there are many merits of distilling your driving down to one program these days, and especially so that he commutes from Switzerland to Silverstone to do sim sessions, and that with a young family and his other commitments, that's got to be hard to juggle.
The reason I asked about Vandoorne and NEOM is because Jake Hughes appears to be a man in demand around the paddock. Who are his suitors?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. He is the man of the moment in a sense, isn't he? After that second place and the pole position in Shanghai last month, he's been one of the better rookies that have come into the championship in recent years. Tailed off a bit last season, the second half, but it was the same for his teammate René Rast, who, he beat points-wise, and he got 2 pole positions last season. He's ferociously quick, Jake. He's super quick over one lap, and actually during the races, he's good. He has fallen foul of some of the more brutal tactics in the championship this season. Some of them his fault, some of them not, which has denied him some results. I think looking at it from the outside, he got his big chance with NEOM McLaren. The presumption was it was a 1-year deal with an option from the team's perspective on his services for this season. That was taken up. He's probably had a very similar season in a sense, although sort of loaded towards second half of the season this year so far. His stock is high. We don't know the ins and outs of his commercial situation there, but I think the fact that he was taken on as the kind of the office junior in a way, wasn't he? He came in through the back door in the sense that he was a youth driver really with the team, a reserve driver. I think now, and he's just turned 30, I think his attentions will be turning to the fact that, look, I've got the experience. I've proven I can get poles.
Surely he wants a works drive now, really? That's
I was going around the houses to say that, yeah, exactly. Yeah. He wants to probably go up a notch to a factory team now. And I would imagine, the talk is that he and his representatives are scouring the landscape for that. And, part of me thinks...
So who have we got? Where are the opportunities at works things? So Nissan?
This ties us into several avenues, doesn't it? Nissan would be a logical choice. Oliver Rowland is confirmed there for at least next year, probably the year after too.
Oh, they should be tying that man down to a multiple.
Yeah, I think he is essentially. I think he is. And if you look at where they are in the team's championship, Sasha Fenestraz hasn't contributed massively to that. He's had a troubled season for several reasons why that's happened. I think they are looking at the potential of replacing Fenestraz. I think that is likely. And who would they? You could look at potentially you could look at Vandoorne. The problem with Vandoorne is that he represents Peugeot in WEC, and it's a clashing brand, and it's two manufacturers, and it's a hell of a workload, and he's got the Aston stuff.
But that's always been the genius of Buemi, is how he's able to represent three manufacturers at a time. Anyone's ever got away with that?
Yeah, that's impressive. It's impressive. So then you would think, well, who could Nissan look at? Who is a known proposition? Not only a known proposition, but somebody who's done it in their car. It's Jake Hughes, isn't it? And
it's just two Brits cause an issue. It's a global championship.
Yeah,
that does seem a bit parochial.
I don't think so. No, I don't think that matters at all. The nationality, unless you're, no, I don't think that there is a problem with that. I think Hughes is looking around, and I think the onus is possibly on McLaren to make it make a future for him desirable in Formula E, because it's not the Jake Hughes of last summer or the summer before where he's got options, where he didn't have options. He now has options, and he is a proven quantity. So I think he and James and the senior team there have got some work to do with Jake, because he's certainly on the market.
But if he does move on, it seems obvious to me, maybe it isn't, that Taylor Barnard comes in. He's done a cracking job on those couple of replacement drives while Sam Bird's wrist was healing. Is it as clear cut as that, or of course there's always other things in consideration, isn't there?
Yeah, I think they'd certainly consider Taylor Barnard. They'd have to, wouldn't they, after his performances? Known to the team, a degree of continuity should Jake go. I mean, we've not talked about Sam Bird. I mean, we don't know if Sam is solid there, but the assumption is that he'll get a second season at McLaren, even though he's having Sao Paulo apart a tough time really in recent races. But I think Barnard would be a person of interest. The other thing is, it all comes back to Da Costa, doesn't it? I mean, look at, if Da Costa ends up getting a top WEC seat and he wants a independent customer team, where better than McLaren? And McLaren would love an experienced ex-champion. And the other thing that's attractive for Da Costa and possibly McLaren as well is that they don't get the test days, so Da Costa wouldn't have a clash, or it would be an easy relative plug in and play for somebody of his experience to go to Bicester and be part of that team. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happened, but equally, I wouldn't be surprised if Da Costa went to, Maserati, or if he went to DS, as we talked about before. The key, again, going back to the key is, would McLaren be open to a driver doing two programs and not having priority on his services? Because ultimately, that'll be the key when it comes down to it, when it comes down to doing a deal.
Interesting.
We love talking stats here at The Athletic. Here's one that's super simple to remember. Discover automatically doubles the cash back you've earned on your credit card at the end of your first year with Cashback Match. That means with Discover, you could turn $150 cash back to $300. That's right. You could put it towards some memorabilia you've had your eye on, or treat yourself to a premium sports network. You earn, and Discover doubles. See terms at discover.com/credit-card.
We'll get back to the pod in a moment, but first of all, let me tell you about Grammarly. Email, Google Docs, Slack, you write across multiple platforms and places during your workday, so delivering consistent, high-quality communication everywhere is key. Grammarly is an AI writing partner that helps you get work done faster with high-quality writing for better projects, proposals, presentations, and more. Best of all, Grammarly works where you work, so you can get more done no matter what tools you use. As a journalist and podcast host, I'm constantly writing and rewriting copy and drawing up scripts. It's part of the job, and Grammarly helps make it faster. It's got some really cool features like tone suggestions to help you strike the right balance between direct and friendly in work emails. Plus, Grammarly has a ton of other great features like advanced spelling, grammar, punctuation, and conciseness suggestions to ensure your writing is professional, mistake-free, and clear. Get AI writing support that works where you work. Sign up and download for free at grammarly.com/podcast. That's GRAMMARLY.com/podcast. Easier said, done.
Mentioned Andretti there. We're assuming that Dennis must be tied in there.
Yeah, he is.
Nato's had a mini resurgence and actually was very good last time out. Is that going to be enough to keep him in there, or that is a race-winning car most weekends? You need someone who's winning races, don't you?
Yeah, I think it's 50-50 as we stand. I think Norman's found himself in this unfortunate familiar position of not really knowing what he's doing next year. He just never gets the continuity, and actually Andretti don't get the continuity. 22 they had Askew, then they had Lotterer, and then they had Nato.
Oh, it goes back to, remember the first season. I think they had more drivers than there were races.
Yeah, they did. They did, didn't they? Who did they have? Scott Speed was in there, wasn't he?
Well, they started off with Montani and Pick. I mean, Charles Pick, he's a great pointless answer when you go back through the history of it. Matty Brabham, and I mean, we've barely got out of the first 2 races now. We're already on 4. Jeff
came in and brought some stability and was there for long. Dear old Justin Wilson, of course, did Moscow, didn't he?
Yes.
Did a one-off cameo. Sadly, the year that he was killed. But yeah. I mean, Andretti needs some continuity, I think, and Nato gets on super well with that team and with Dennis, and when he can, he gets some good results, as he did with that 3rd in Shanghai. Whether that'll be enough, I don't know. I think they'll be looking. Andretti will be talking. I think at the end of the day, a lot will come down to, again, what happens with the knock-on of Da Costa's decision. But yeah, we do know that they need absolute priority for their Formula E program.
I can't see Da Costa going to the customer Porsche team.
No.
That would seem to be the one place he won't end up.
No, of course they do know him. He was there for sort of 4 seasons, wasn't he, and got some wins for them and had a good time there, and he's well respected. But no, I don't see that happening. I think the more I think of it, the more sticking with Nato makes a whole lot of sense there. And as I said in the previous podcast, I hope that happens, because I think he deserves a second season so far.
So do you want to go through them team by team and say what you think's going to happen? I'm gonna get the beautiful Formula E website up, just so I don't, because I always find when you do this, there's always one you forget. Right?
We should just have an animated donkey and a tail and a pin, shouldn't we? Probably.
So apt, right? So De Grassi, my understanding, he's got a year left on his contract. He's going to see it out, and that may or may not be his last season in Formula E. I suspect it'll probably be the end. Yeah,
nothing to add. Yeah, I think De Grassi will be there for sure next season. The interesting one is who's going to be alongside him, I think.
So currently Muller, but a man who should be in demand and is in demand. I mean, what he's been doing in that car with definitely the worst powertrain on the grid, it's been impressive, right?
Yeah, obviously Abt want to keep hold of him. Why wouldn't you? He's done a terrific job in the last... mainly the last year and a half since Abt have been able to get that Mahindra to work in any sense of the word, really. He is a bit of a man in demand, Muller. Remember that he races for Peugeot in the WEC, and he is part of the Stellantis family in a way. I think he's got elements of free agent status in terms of what he can do, but yeah, Abt is obviously going to be Abt Lola Yamaha next year. It is going to be a season of finding its feet. I think Lucas Di Grassi will head that up with all his experience, and it'll be a good thing for the whole project. Nico Muller will be then in his fourth season. He did a season a bit, didn't he, with Dragon in Gen 2, but I'd forgotten all about that. Yeah, I think he has as well. I think most people have, by definition. I think actually, if you put yourself, it's always good to try and put yourself in the position of these drivers, isn't it? At this moment, if you're Nico Muller and you know you've got a Peugeot contract for next season, if that's the case, or let's just say a WEC drive for next season, you're probably going to be wanting, as many of the drivers are who do both championships, to want a non-factory drive. So you've got flexibility and freedom, and you're not beholden to the manufacturer. And then in this dispute we've talked about having priority or not priority, I think Muller will be looking at some of the teams, let's say that cluster of Maserati and Envision, and potentially, obviously, Abt as well. There is a chance that he will stay at Abt and they will want him, and he knows them, and it's kind of like a family to him. But on the other side, he is part of the Stellantis family at the moment as well. And if he does continue with Peugeot, then wouldn't it make sense for him to also be with one of the Stellantis brands in Formula E? So you then look at DS and Maserati, and you think, well, yeah, that could be a possibility for him. And I could see that happening. I could see Muller getting the perfect structure, in the sense that he's working with a factory in WEC, and then he's working with a customer team, also affiliated with his Stellantis brand Peugeot via Maserati or DS in Formula E. So want to watch that. We have no knowledge of whether that's a reality, but I wouldn't be surprised if Muller ends up at one of those teams.
And if he goes, I guess that's probably one of the seats that's up for grabs for potentially an exciting young rookie coming in.
Yeah, I would say so. I think, they've got the experience and the know-how of Degrassi. Why not get a youngster or somebody that they know from DTM? Abt, don't forget Abt is the team, but Lola is the manufacturer. So, I don't know what say Lola would have in it, but I assume that Abt would have the controlling power to really get a name in there. They love Kelvin van der Linde. Kelvin does other things, of course, with DTM and WEC. Tim Tramnitz has tested for them. He's doing Formula 3. Not sure that he'll want to get off that F3, F2 ladder right now.
That's a big ask, I think.
Yeah, and it's a big ask too. So, yeah, unknown really on that, but I sort of reckon it would probably be in and around that area, that it's probably going to be a driver that Abt know and love. So
Andretti, we're thinking it's probably going to stay as Dennis and Nato. I think I agree with that.
Yeah, it's not nailed on, but yeah, I think it's more likely that they'll have some continuity.
So DS Penske, Jev, a certainty. That's got to be one of the most desirable drives, though. That one next to him.
Yeah.
Does it make the most sense for the Costa to cover that one, or is the fact that it's a customer, that it's a manufacturer team, and you have the whole WEC duality thing?
Yeah, I think it's, if it came down to it, if it came down to Da Costa leaving Porsche and doing a dual program, then of the two of those, so they've both got really good attributes, haven't they? He knows DS Penske, they know him. He had great success there. So, he could feasibly go back there, but then he's in a factory team which has all the test days, and it's a big commitment for a dual program. But look, Jev does that already, doesn't he? Jev does a lot of the development for DS on their manufacturer test days, and he still races for Peugeot in the WEC. So it's the same, really. It's the same deal that Jev has. I think it would probably be, in a way, be more desirable to go to Maserati, the other Stellantis brand, because they are not the factory entity, although they have manufacturer status through the back door, so to speak. They don't have the test days, and I think there's one really important part of this is the future of that team, isn't it? We've touched on it before.
Yeah, we'll get onto them in a minute. But as we work our way down.
I think, who will DS Penske have? Look, they could have Da Costa, they could have Muller, they could go for a new blood. Robert Schwartzman is very highly rated there from the small amount of running he's done for them. He's done 3 tests though now, and he is okay. He's tied up with some factory, a factory deal with Ferrari. We don't know the sort of the potency of that.
I'm surprised he's not in more conversations on this sort of thing.
Yeah, I think he's one of the key rookies for the future for Formula E. He and Maloney, we've said this before, particularly. And I think Schwartzman is the one who could get a sniff of a race seat with DS Penske if Vandoorne leaves, and we believe that he will. And that it could be some new blood in there alongside Jev, which is kind of the perfect team, isn't it? An experienced double champion and a hungry rookie is a nicely balanced team.
I think we've covered Envision off. One team we haven't even mentioned, ERT, and I guess that's because pretty much anything could happen there. You wouldn't be massively surprised if the Tictum and Sete Camera re-sign. Equally, if they brought in two completely new drivers, it wouldn't surprise me either.
Very fluid. Could go either way. I mean, they could have a third season together, those two. Part of me thinks that both of them want a new challenge, let's call it.
You would definitely argue that they are better than the team. They're probably the team's strongest asset at the moment.
Yes. Yeah, that's a reasonable shout, and it's got its basis in some of the evidence. We saw how good they were in flashes and what they're able to achieve this season.
A great bit of teamwork in Mazzano and all of that.
Yeah, and they've been quick,
and they're both spectacular to watch. I mean, I hope they stay on the grid.
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought about Sete Camera. I've always just, whenever I see him on one of his, acrobatic qualifying laps, I just think, how good would he be to watch at Detroit or Toronto?
He'd be a brilliant IndyCar
IndyCar
driver.
He'd be a mega IndyCar driver, and I'm surprised he's not, got a proper test with an IndyCar team, or he's not on the radar.
Coins put in just about every. I mean, they dug out Tristan Vautier for the last race. I 8 years since his last. In fairness, he did a good job considering. But you think he should be the sort of person in that conversation?
Yeah, definitely, and I think he's got one eye on doing other things. He's represented by the Jacoby, Julian Jacoby and Alexander Jacoby stable, and they're always good at getting drives for their clients. So part of me thinks he'll stay in Formula E, but I don't see many opportunities. I mean, if Envision decide to have a clear out, Sete Camera would be a decent shout there, wouldn't he? I mean, Sete Camera and Vandoorne lineup would be pretty tasty, but I think his options may be reasonably limited. Tictum probably needs an episode all of its own, right? I mean, who knows? I mean, he's got the air of somebody who's confident he can get another drive in Formula E, or can even get with a factory. I've never been convinced.
To see, isn't it?
I can never been convinced that he would be still, which is unfortunate because a lot of the shtick that comes with Tictum is overblown, but I struggle to see where he would fit into it unless there is if Envision have a clear out and Costa leaves, and then all of a sudden Vandoorne goes to Porsche, there could be something at Envision. But it would be a chance. They'd be taking a big chance on Tictum, not from a driving point of view,
not from a performance point of view
at all. But people are still not convinced that he can sort of behave himself, which is, partly a trench he's dug himself. But again, everybody deserves
as you say, overblown, but not completely fabricated.
No, and I think people just need. It would take somebody, taking a chance on him, and then him having a really good solid season, and sort of tempering some of his opinions sometimes. It's just the way it is, there are corporate responsibilities and everything. Yeah. So
Jaguar, Mahindra, we've covered those off. Maserati, to say, interesting, not least just through what's the future of that team? Where's the ownership structure? So before I think any drivers commit there, that's got to be resolved.
Yes, it has, yeah. And I think it is being. I did reach out to the team recently, and they gave me a very curt, there's nothing to see here.
Okay.
Which was amusing, because I think half the paddock knows that they're in discussions with people for a change of possibly ownership, but certainly structurally with that team, with the MSG part of that. Obviously, Maserati is the Stellantis brand that it's associated with. Look, let's see. We don't know what the future of that team is, but I would be extremely surprised if Max Gunter and Jehan Deruvala are both there next season. I think Gunter's got a possibility for sure, and probably should have after, the great performance in Tokyo and some other very strong performances. But I think Deruvala, I struggle to see what his future.
It's such a bloody hard championship as a rookie.
It is, and I think he may be a one season wonder. I struggle to see where he might fit in if he doesn't get a seat at Maserati. And from all the discussions,
ERT, I mean, he brings a budget, right?
That's I think part of his makeup. Yeah, I mean, we don't know for sure, but I think there's commercial. There's certainly a commercial strand of the way that he goes racing. And look, he's had some great performances. He was really good in Shanghai. He was good in Berlin. He was really good in Diriyah. So he would be a good driver to have with a team, but I just don't see there being room for him elsewhere unless things like 2 or 3 drop out. If Sete Camera does go to IndyCar or does something else, then yeah, you could see him at ERT for sure. And he'd be a really good plug in there. So I think Maserati will see at least one change in that team. And as we've discussed, I think the potential for the Da Costa Muller sort of axis to infiltrate that team is quite high. But of course, first everyone needs clarity on what that team is going to be next season.
Gunter candidate to go to DS and switch within the brand?
I don't think so. No, I think we mentioned Vandoorne about the possibility of replacing Da Costa at Porsche, but what about Gunter? Could there be an all-German lineup there? Could it be Wehrlein and Gunter? Why wouldn't you look at Gunter for that? I mean, it would be a dream move for him, German manufacturer. But Gunter and Wehrlein, I mean, that's got fireworks all over it, hasn't it, really? Let's face it. I think it'd be quite exciting. I don't know. I would say, as it stands, I think Gunter is more likely to stay at Maserati, but it's for sure not absolutely nailed on. And if options open up through the whole Da Costa situation, then who knows? He could end up being all German at Porsche.
Interesting stuff. NEOM McLaren, I think we've done enough of that.
Yeah.
Nissan, likewise. I feel bad for Fenestraz. He's a lovely chap, and when things go right for him, it goes well. But it's just been way too many off days this season.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to think of it actually, because he was so good last year. And he was so comfortable, and he's one of those genial people who just never gets really angry about anything unless it's Norman Nato creaming you into the barriers at Berlin.
Yeah, understandable.
His old
right?
teammate. I don't know. I think Nissan are kind of undecided. I think half of them think, well, he does bring a lot to the team, and he on his day he's extremely, extremely good, and he will get out of this trophies in. On the other, though, if you look at their points, and we mentioned this before, if he had contributed even 30 more points, Nissan would be now nailed on for at least third in that championship.
No, it's costing them big time.
Yeah, it is costing them, and that will factor into it. I think they're probably looking, and they're probably watching the situation with what's happening at Porsche and sort of looking at the Da Costa thing. But as I said, I don't think Nissan is that appealing to Da Costa because of the fact that it is a clashing brand for what he wants to do in WEC. And the priority aspect would have to come into consideration. So maybe a cul-de-sac there. The Hughes thing to me makes a lot of sense if Jake leaves McLaren. That would just be a nice kind of Tetris style fit, wouldn't it? You'd just like slot down and pop into Nissan and be with a major manufacturer, and happy days for Jake, and Nissan would get a proven performer. So yeah, let's see.
And Porsche, I don't think there's anything else left to say other than that. Ultimately, they are the kingmakers here. When they decide what they're doing, I think we'll see quite a lot of the other pieces click into place quite quickly.
Yeah, I see that. It's all about Da Costa at this stage. And it's imminent. Things are imminent. This won't go on for a long time. June is the month. One of the reasons why we're doing this podcast, just to inform everyone about what's going on. June is the month. I think we'll get to Portland, and I think a few of those pieces will be in place. And then, if it's delayed, I remember last year the Cassidy thing was like, it started to trickle out just before Portland, and then people going at Portland, it's happened, it's done, it's signed. It wasn't. It wasn't absolutely done until July. Getting these drivers drivers these deals isn't just, sign your name here. There's a hell of a lot of negotiations and meetings and ticking boxes to get through. So even if it's decided and it is it is agreed, until it's signed, it's not signed, and that is the real tricky part of it. Tricky for us, actually, for reporting it and breaking the news, because you never
but we wouldn't have a podcast to do it. Couldn't go down these alleys. Talking of which, there's been some spectacular bit of PR management by the championship by causing some speculations about Ferrari being interested. And I saw a post, which will date the recording of the show yesterday, about all these Chinese manufacturers they've been speaking to. I mean, brilliant way of drumming up some engagement, but not something that's actually going to happen, right?
No. They're the promoters, aren't they? They're promoting. They've got a 4-week gap between Shanghai and Portland. They need a bit of noise. So, that's what it is. It's talking about something that's, is a conversation or a meeting or whatever. Ferrari aren't going to the manufacturer meetings or the technical working group meetings. They're not poring over future Gen 4 regulations and saying, look, let's build something for the future. There's one very clear reason why Ferrari will not come to Formula E, and that is that in 2026, Formula 1 will be essentially 50% electric anyway. So they don't need to get their message out. Yes, they're building some all-electric cars. Everybody is. And everybody knows that eventually, in the next 20 years, there'll be very few ICE cars available.
Well, we'll see about that, won't we?
Well, we will, but
I think synthetic fuel, it's amazing in the 10 years that Formula E's been around, the way in which technology's developed. My confidence on the supremacy of the electric car thing has actually diluted a little bit. I think the synthetic fuel thing might mean that internal combustion engines have a much more of a future than maybe we thought.
Yeah, and I think that's right, and I think that is a rational way to look at it. And Ferrari activating another motorsport program outside of F1 and endurance racing for something that actually isn't guaranteed advancement in technology in the future.
I think that's the kicker.
Yeah. I mean, why would they? Why would they do that? No, I think this is a part wishful thinking on Formula E's part, and remember that the CEO Jeff Dodds was a few weeks before this latest. What should we call it? Let's not call it a stunt. Let's call it promotion.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound as if I'm deriding this, because I think it's the right thing to do. It's just it's our job to quantify the likelihood of this happening. The other thing, which is exactly the right thing to do, is court the likes of BYD and the other enormous Chinese manufacturers. I think it's for people who are not in the bubble of what's going on over in China, it's hard to imagine just how big these Chinese car manufacturers are now, making more electric cars than the rest of them put together, and that includes Tesla.
Yeah.
Courting them and getting them involved makes a hell of a lot of sense, because they only make electric cars, and having their involvement is absolutely key. And if there were a franchise available and you could encourage them to do it, that would make complete sense.
Well, exactly. And, just going back to that point, I sort of half went over. A few weeks before the Ferrari thing came out, Jeff Dodds was in the Financial Times touting around the 12th licence. And in an ideal world, it would be a Ferrari, or it would be a Hyundai, but, it's not going to be. So...
Now, I think in an ideal world, actually, BYD makes more sense.
Well, of course, and it's not the only one. They were talking to Lynk & Co. and Zeekr and IM Motor, Xiaomi.
There's hundreds of them.
They're massive companies, and they've got it's a huge market. China is a huge market, and the export as well. BYD are exporting all over the world and are huge in South America and North America, two of the territories where Formula E races.
Well, I remember when we went to Chile. I didn't recognise half the car brands on the streets, because the Chinese cars are so prevalent there, and that was back when they were making internal combustion cars. I haven't seen the figures, but I bet electric car sales in Chile are predominantly Chinese.
I would imagine so. And certainly in Brazil, BYD were actually activating in Mexico, and I think there was people in Brazil as well. You know, they've been quite close before. They were talking to Venturi in season 1, and they've always been on the periphery of Formula E and showed interest. And you know, some of the quotes that was put out in that press release by Formula E really interesting. The president of Zika was extremely warm towards the championship, and yes, you know, they were on their territory and they invited them and they treated them as VIPs. And exactly what they should be doing. And you know,
but they don't need the tech trickle down, and not in the same way that Ferrari needs there to be some sort of relevance to its products. Or for them, the fact it's electric racing and there's this brand a lot of people still haven't heard of is they're competing, doesn't even need to be competing against Porsche and Nissan and other established brands. That's job done.
Yeah, the only thing I'd sort of pull up on that is, you know, is there actually a trickle down? I mean, you know, yeah, there's silicon carbide and there's this and that and the other.
Oh no, there isn't any. No, that's the point.
Oh, sorry,
and that's why it doesn't. That's why I'm saying for Ferrari it doesn't make any sense. For BYD, they don't need a trickle down.
Oh, sorry, yeah, we're aligned on that definitely.
Yeah.
No, completely agree.
In fantasy Formula E, it's absolutely pioneering the development of electric cars, but then you're going to need $300, $400, $500 million budgets in order to really accelerate the battery technology and all that powertrain technology, and it's dead within 6 months.
Yeah.
So there's a reason it is the way it is.
Yeah, and you know, if you go onto the site, it's live on tomorrow, 7th of June. There's a column that I've done just thinking and trying to understand what Formula One's higher electricity embracement that's going to be part of the 2026.
Are you making up words now?
Embracement is a made-up word, isn't it? I'm quite proud of that. I'm proud of that. You can have that for free. I'm going to get that registered. An embracing of more electrical propulsion power, whatever you want to call it, is interesting because it's going to be basically half, 50% pretty much is going to be electric in Formula One. And how does that affect the Formula E message going forward? And and then what if Formula One goes hydrogen? I think the rules are out kind of as we speak, aren't they?
Yeah,
about the future.
I think hydrogen or synthetic is absolutely this. We could go and do a whole hour on the 2026 engine regs and why I think they're a complete waste of time.
Yep.
But that's for another show, and it's none of our business, quite frankly.
I'm disappointed, VDB. I think you should embracement those regulations much more.
Yeah, my embracement of those regulations is really not cromulent. Right, come on then. Let's get the calendar jingle out and let's see whereabouts in the world. Spin the wheel or spin the globe bar and see where we're ending up.
Sam's calendar update.
Take us through it. Season 11 Formula E calendar.
Yes.
All the stars, I imagine.
Yeah, well, so actually, we got to caveat this.
When I worked at Formula E, I ran out of asterisks.
There's a little archive or a little loft full of asterisks, is there? So we've got to caveat this because we're recording this on the 6th of June. We believe that on the 10th of June, is that right? Hang on, where are we? 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. Yeah, 10th of June, next Monday. So this podcast won't come out until after it is known, the calendar. So we're really testing our intelligence.
You showed how the sausages are made now, Sam. You really...
Nobody needs to see that. So this is what we believe the calendar will be, and we'll either look like heroes or idiots as usual on this one.
Yeah, well, it's a familiar feeling.
Usually it's the latter. So pre-season testing, Valencia, November the 4th to the 7th. We've already reported that. The season we think will start in Sao Paulo on the 7th of December.
So they've overcome the issues with the FIA gala being held in Somalia or wherever it is.
Where is it? It's Rwanda, isn't it? It's the
Rwanda. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, God, it's terrible that I've mixed those two up, but you know what I mean.
Brought to you in association with the Tories. Oh no, better not have that. Should we have that? No, maybe not.
We might want to edit any of this out.
Okay, so after Sao Paulo, I mean they're going to start it the straddle the years, which they've not done for a few years since the pandemic. I think that kind of makes a bit more sense.
It always made sense to me. Take advantage. Cram as many races in while there's no Formula One as possible.
Absolutely. So second calendar year visit to Sao Paulo. It'd be interesting, wouldn't it? What they're going to call it, because they can't call it the 2024 Sao Paulo EP because there's already been one.
I'd have to go back to season 11 Sao Paulo.
So that'll be followed by the traditional race in Mexico City in the middle of Jan, middle of Feb, a doubleheader in Diriyah. Lots of rumours that there might be a change in the circuit. I don't know if it's on the same site or they may just redesign the track there. So one to watch on that one. Now, this is where it gets interesting. So potentially round 5 in March, 8th of March, I've got Chiang Mai, which is in northern Thailand.
I mean, if that's happening, I'm there. But I will not be getting a visa or booking any flights. What date have you got it at?
8th of May. March,
I will leave that
March,
till I will leave that to the last days of February before booking anything.
Yeah, but this is part of a big sustainability thing going on in Thailand, backed by the government. So I'm told that that's reasonably as solid as it can be for a Formula E calendar. The US race could be at Homestead, which we reported a couple of weeks ago.
I think I made my feelings about that clear before, so I'll move on that.
Yeah, we can get Bob Varsha out again in the Gen 3, give him a spin round Homestead like we did in Season 1. And then Monaco. So this is interesting. So I'm told that Monaco could be a double header.
Okay.
And that would be at the beginning of May, which I think would be great, actually. I think a double header at Monaco would be mega because it always gives a good race and it's a good sort of feel-good place, good for sponsors and VIPs.
And I think they really need to explain to people that you can have as much fun as Formula One in Monaco for a tenth of the price. I would argue it's the best way to do Monaco now.
Yeah, agree. Then Tokyo on the 17th of May, so a bit later for the second Tokyo E-Prix. This is then really into the Asian leg. So Shanghai, I've got for the end of May, beginning of June, 31st of May, 1st of June, a return to Shanghai, presumably the Shanghai International Circuit where they raced recently.
You would think it'd be the same version of the track, maybe play around with that last chicane.
Double header there. Next up, the return of Jakarta, which I think is a legacy of the deal that was done but was interrupted by the political instability, not instability, the political activities that were going on this year. Berlin would move to July, and we believe this is when the clash would be with potentially with the WEC on one of those weekends.
That's going to be a sweaty old Berlin, isn't it?
Yeah, but I'm also told that Berlin could move to the spring if a hole needs to be plugged in the calendar. I presume either the Thai or the Homestead race, which may have some of your stock of asterisks in there, potentially on the provisional calendar. You can toss them around. And London would finish the final London E-Prix at Excel before a move to Silverstone in 26, and the London race would be at the final weekend of July, I think. So. Or maybe not the final weekend, but anyway, late July. That's what we have. I reckon that's fairly accurate. I'd be surprised if there's much deviation from that, but we won't find out until next week when we're recording this. So, by the time you're listening to this, listener, you will know whether we're heroes or absolute idiots who don't know what they're talking about.
So, one new country, two new venues?
Two new tracks, one returning with Jakarta. The one omission, which we should talk about, is Italy. We don't believe there's an Italian race. Yeah. Unless...
I was thinking it was light on European races.
Yeah, it seems to be. What have we got? We got Monaco, Berlin, London. That's it, isn't it? Yeah, so it looks like there won't be a race in Italy, although I've heard talk that potentially Misano could be a sort of substitute race, that if there is needed to be one, that could plug in the spring, or they might move.
For Jakarta or a Thailand.
Yeah,
fell
you just
over.
never know, do you? You know, a Hyderabad situation can always crop up, unfortunately, and they
But
need to
again,
have
no return for India. No, not even a sniff of South Africa.
There was some talk with Cape Town coming back, but it was just that. I think further.
I missed that one.
Yeah, I think further down the road, it's one that could come back. You know, I think there's still an appetite there. Hyderabad, I'd be surprised if Formula E races in Hyderabad this century after what happened last time. I think there's just a lot of bad blood there.
I agree.
A lot of bad blood, a lot of legal ramifications, and more likelihood of Formula E racing in downtown Montreal, probably.
yeah, that's never happening again. So Portland up next. Obviously, we know what the racing's like there. Mental, frankly. What are you expecting?
Oh, more of the same, if not more so, because I think people now are more attuned to that. I mean, what we saw last season, I'm going to watch it again, actually, just for the comedy value of a lot of it. It will just be a madhouse. Uber peloton, probably the most extreme of the season.
They're not doing anything to the track. I mean, obviously, they may well play around with their energy levels just to take the edge off it a little bit.
I think they'll have to. I think they'll have to some degree. But of course, what they've got to factor in is the duty cycle of the batteries as well. This has been a concern for the last two events at Berlin and Shanghai. So they've got to have an eye on what's going on there. I mean, that side of things. I know I keep going on about it in a sort of slightly negative frame of mind, but I'm also hearing that they're going to bring back the attack charge practice for London, the last race.
I just can't be bothered to.
I mean, what sense does that make? What sense does that make to put extra stress and time on the teams?
Imagine if the championship is decided by a battery failure as a result of what happened during that. No, it just doesn't even bear thinking about.
No, it doesn't, and there'll be a lot of bad blood if that truly happens. But why not just do it at a test? Do a test.
Yeah, organise a special test. They got months. They got literally months.
6 months. Well, no, 5 months off season. Yeah. 5 months off season.
There's room in that gap to find they can do it behind closed doors then, and have all the things that need to go wrong and fix them.
Yeah.
But anyway,
but
I know?
They were doing this nearly sort of 2 years ago, weren't they? So let's see. We might get it. Actioned one day.
One day, mate. Anything else?
I don't think so. No. We'll probably have a bit more news on the Silverstone side of things for 26 coming up. I think again, it's all going to be about the
rallycross track.
Hoppy's drop. Oh no, that was Brands, wasn't it?
That was Brands.
That was Brands. Yeah,
I think it was either 1 year or maybe it did 2 events that they had. They built that rallycross circuit for, and then it's been. I can't remember the last time it was even used. It'd be funny though, wouldn't it?
We could get Martin Shanker to do. Oh no, Martin Shanker's not with us anymore. Is Martin Shanker still with us?
I don't know.
Well, if not, we'll get the ghost of Martin Shanker.
Apologies to his family if he isn't. But he was a legend.
Absolute
or still is, if he's still going.
Oh, we got to get Scott Mitchell on this, haven't we? Because he's a big rallycross fiend. So shout out for all the rallycross heads out there on a Formula E podcast. Why not?
We're nothing if not inclusive, mate.
And erratic.
And on that note, thank you for listening. Remember to check out the-race.com for Sam's ramblings and in-depth articles and some speculation.
And made-up words.
No, luckily we have a team of sub-editors to get rid of those. Don't forget to check our other podcasts. Obviously, Formula One, really exciting at the moment. Different winners and stuff. MotoGP, unbelievably exciting. Big-name rider moves and all that sort of thing. IndyCar, really exciting. Great series going on there. Check all these things out. And obviously, colossally, that's history, and bring back V10s if you like to look back at the other days when electricity was just the thing that you plugged your TV into when you were watching it. Goodbye.